Finally, week 1 beta review time. I waited for it to be completely done to get a good feeling for it all. I love many things about this game. The sound design is amazing, the animations are incredibly detailed and punchy and real. I keep seeing new things that impress me. I love being back in the modern setting, and I have a positive outlook towards this game. I'm excited for launch, but it ain't all sunshine and rainbows, and it's in the nature of these beta review videos to be focusing on negatives. Just don't interpret that as me saying the game is terrible. The first topic was going to be an obvious one, the minimap, but now it's going to be a little explanation on the skill-based matchmaking debacle. I know the reception was overwhelmingly positive, but I messed up with that video, and I tweeted about it myself even before anybody called me out on it. In my head, I was trying to conduct a test on a hypothesis that I had to try to explain this community-wide feeling of difficult games in the beta. So I did a little reverse boosting test, and I stopped at only 5 games because the results that I was looking for, mind you, had already become so apparent on games 3, 4, and 5. I was getting such strange games, so after game 6, I felt that it proved beyond reasonable doubt that there was strong SBMM, when in reality that tiny test was just another anecdote, a bit better than saying my games have been difficult, but not very scientific. And I know nothing about how matchmaking works, so I shouldn't have pretended to draw any strong conclusion. I know Drifter, who primarily disagreed with what I did, suggested that there is a special low-skill protected bracket that I managed to reverse boost into, and I mistook that as proof of SBMM overall. I've never heard of that bracket, so I jumped to the conclusion that I thought was the most reasonable at the time before I was presented with that alternate idea. I'd like to think my intentions were pure, but my main mistake was that I didn't put as much thought as I should have into how I presented the information, because I did not foresee how the community would latch onto it. I think I made it sound too much like hard proof, and everyone was eager to accept that as fact because it confirmed their biases, and I was blinded by my own biases coming from my experience and everything I'd been hearing. So I proved what I wanted to prove, which is the not scientific part. The games were not fake or staged in any way, but it was not at all thorough or conclusive. So my bad, I make mistakes. I think this was an honest one. I don't want to mislead people. The thing I'd like to apologize for is any harassment the devs have gotten because I stirred the pot. My intention was not to rile people up. Please be respectful, everyone. I updated the title and description and left a pinned comment to try to explain how it is not proof, as I originally felt. I have left the video up, as I think the discussion is still worth having, but if they come out and tell me I'm wrong, I'll definitely take it down. That's all I'll say about that. As far as the rest of this video goes, I'll review the beta ignoring the potential of there being SBMM, because I can't say if there was any or not, or how strong it may have been, and if that had any effect on my experience of the game. I felt that's a subjective thing right there, a feeling. I felt like I was playing against an upper echelon of players every game that I didn't expect to find on an open beta that doesn't even require PS Plus, and that could have affected how much camping and head glitching and all that I ran into, but I do not know if there's anything to that. I am pretty bad at this game too, so that definitely didn't help. All I can do is review the game as I experienced it. So back to the minimap, the radar. Yeah, there's no avoiding that topic either. So far, I have held off having any strong opinion on the radar debate, because despite all the early pushback, Infinity Ward said they would wait for the beta to get feedback on it. They wanted people to try it, so I was willing to try it. And the 2v2 mode, I think, was good the way it was. No real need for the map in that mode. But now I have played the game with the radar off and with it on, and if I'm honest with myself, I do thoroughly think the minimap should be in this game. I will go through why I think that makes sense. I hope you know I'm never one to go with the popular opinion. In fact, I more often find myself being the contrarian douchebag, but not this time. I saw a few polls. It was always about 80% of people want the minimap back, the other 20% happy with it gone. And yeah, 20% isn't nobody. Among the arguments I've seen for liking it gone, some people just say they like it feeling more realistic that way, not a distraction, putting more emphasis on slow and tactical gameplay, paying more attention to sound. Fair enough, I can't take your opinion away from you. I also get that the map is something people are used to, and when that changes, people tend to react negatively to change, and maybe with enough playtime it would feel normal again. I've seen people say, just trust the devs, let them make changes, but that isn't a good reason for the change if people don't like it and you can't explain why it improves the gameplay more than it harms it. So as long as you're respectful to the devs and you give it a fair shake and you find you don't like it, there's nothing wrong with expressing that. Then there are people with bad reasons like, don't whine, just adapt, you're a bad player if you rely on the map, quit complaining, just get good. Alright, well, again, it's a beta. They said they would be watching for feedback to make changes. So, of course, we're going to speak our minds. Saying what you want to change in a beta is not being an entitled whiner. It's what you're supposed to do. Just be respectful about it. And this debate is not at all about skill level, more about preference and playstyle. I get that if you're someone who loves hardcore mode, which is maybe close to 20% of the player base, then this change hasn't affected you. But that doesn't mean you're a superior human being and a god at the game for not wanting the map back. You can also look at the majority of pro COD players and see that they want it back as well. Not that the game should conform to what pro players want either. I'm more just using them as an example to say that it isn't about skill level. I've also seen just use personal radar, UAV, just get 3 kills, stop moaning. Well, I disagree that forcing 2 of your streaks to be personal radar and UAV is good game design. Plus, personal radar follows you around, which does not help with flanking, it often gives you away. Plus, you can only earn it once in each life. Then that leads to people obsessively shooting down those UAVs because of how important they are, and in turn the crutch UAVs make the ghost perk as powerful as ever with you not needing to move for it to work, which leads into how powerful camping can be. That is a whole other topic. Everything is tied together here, and I think almost everything would be just a little bit better all around with a default minimap. Even just a map to see your teammates like we got on the 3rd day. Even if people don't show up when they shoot, I can adjust to that. I know other people aren't okay with that and they want it to go all the way back to normal. Personally, I'm fine with either. I get the idea behind it. It makes sense for an enemy shooting to only give you a directional indicator and not pinpoint them in the world. I like the idea behind that, and I get that is what the compass is with the red dots on there. I have yet to find that useful because it really isn't how I use the minimap most of the time, and I've only found the compass awkward. Never have I seen a red dot on there that gave me useful information that I didn't already hear or see. And I know you can see teammate outlines through walls, that's good and all, but nothing beats looking up in the corner and getting an instant idea of where your team is so you can judge what direction you might be in danger from, which really helps, especially given the maps in this game. We've returned to some fairly big, complex maps. No more 3-lane garbage. Not everyone thinks that, but you know, that's something I've been saying for years, and I do love the freedom of being able to jump on things and not just run into head-on-head gunfights all the time. You can flank, you can hold advantageous positions, but it is crazier than I imagined, at least with the initial maps. They took the real-life location thing and ran with it, completely to the other end of the spectrum, past the previous older Modern Warfare games, I'd say. I still prefer this to the 3-lane competitive copy-paste thing. I just find that so exceptionally boring, but that doesn't mean I think these maps are perfect either, especially with the Azir Cave and the Grozny Raid map. Really not in love. The cave map turns into head glitch city inside and out. Not a big fan. Maybe the head glitching is a separate issue though. And Grozny has a crazy number of buildings and windows that people can be in. I know this person's tweet talking about that on Grozny Raid has turned into a bit of a meme, which is very funny, but the point is still valid. COD is known as the high-action game where you can rush around. That's the niche this game fills pretty much every year. A majority of fans expect that to be possible, so I get it. It is a valid critique. But again, I do still prefer this to the trademark one symmetrical window of a 3-lane style map, but you can go overboard. So those 2 maps especially made me real nervous because I've been asking to ditch the 3-lane formula for so long, and then they do, and what, I'm gonna complain about it? But I know it can be done because then they released the Gunrunner map, and I was shocked by how much more I preferred it. Gunrunner felt much more like the maps I remember, gave some pipeline vibes while clearly being a completely new map, so I stand by saying I'm glad we're taking a break from 3-lane. It is not just nostalgia making me think I liked the older map designs. I mean, how much MWR I played I think should be a testament to that as well. The fact that it is enjoyable, not just rose-colored glasses. So it'll be interesting to see what other maps we get, And maybe they can make some small changes to the existing maps to nerf the head glitching, maybe patch up a couple windows here and there. I will say, even with the maps I didn't like, it has gotten better with time. It really did take learning the maps. The buildings are complicated, you need to know the entrances and exits, you need to know where people can see you from if you want to push anywhere. I do like that map knowledge is a factor again. Getting DLC maps might actually be interesting now. DLC maps have meant nothing to me for years because I just think they all feel the same. In Black Ops 4, I literally did not play a single match on a DLC map, unless you count Nuketown, despite going for 100%. I'm happy for the game to have a learning curve. It also means I have maps I like and maps I dislike again. I forgot that used to be a thing. So there are good and bad things about the maps being how they are, and I think some improvements could be made to them without changing the layout or the general idea. Like I was saying, they could experiment with covering a couple windows, lowering some cover, but even without touching the maps, I think just having that minimap back was a big help. Yeah, it all ties back to that somehow. Without it, I feel a big lack of awareness if I want to dash over to the next building. It is a lot easier to stay in one building, and that's a pattern in this game. I talked a bit about that in the video about the crazy drop-shotting problem. There are many things that contribute to camping being so dominant, like a fairly quick time to kill. It's nothing crazy and not a problem on its own. I think it's in a good place actually, but when you can be seen from 7 windows every time you move, you definitely don't have time to react to the correct window. I know I'm getting back into meme territory, but yeah, that makes you kind of not want to move. And why is that an inherent problem, you might say? I will get to that. Kill streaks over point streaks without spending a dedicated perk also adds to the fear of wanting to move anywhere or touch a flag when you're a few kills off your chopper. Sprint out and aim times aren't bad with the right attachments and weapon classes, even ignoring the drop shot abuse of course, but still a whole lot easier to sit still and mount to something, which is fine as one strategy in the game that shouldn't be eliminated. It's realistic, I get it, but it can't be the only successful strategy. And I don't think that's the case here, but I said I'd come back to why that would be a problem if it went too far in that direction, because I've had some people ask why camping is inherently looked down upon and always viewed as evil, because I know there are other people saying, yeah, screw those kids rushing around like chickens with their heads cut off, which is interesting. Everyone says camper's bad, but maybe we don't think about why very much. I think it is disliked because it's seen as a low-skill, boring way to play the game that is also frustrating to play against. I would describe it as a selfish strategy, in a way. Not to mention, if it's an objective mode and you're not playing the objective, it's obvious why that's annoying. But even in straight-up TDM, if you are camping behind cover in one building, never moving, just aiming down your sights, yeah, I get it. It makes sense to set yourself up in an advantageous spot, but remember that your strategy relies on the fact that other people aren't camping. The fact that other people are putting themselves out there and rushing around into your line of sight is what makes the game work. And if the game is too heavily weighted in favor of camping, if rushing is just too punishing, then everyone's camping and the game ceases to function. Nobody's willing to move because they know as soon as they do, they'll get picked off. Now that's an extreme. Again, I don't think that's the case in this game. You can definitely have success moving around. I'm just saying that's the danger of having a game like COD be too biased towards campy strategies, not allowing for other playstyles to excel. It slows down to a crawl, and for a lot of people, that wouldn't be fun. I'm not saying camping should be impossible. I'm saying there needs to be room for more than that. Like, yeah, maybe I did deserve to die for pushing out there, but it is frustrating when it's infinitely easier to just mount my gun on this thing and not move. That turned out a whole lot better than anything I was trying in that game up to that point. And that's something I'm not expecting to completely fundamentally change. So if you hate this, you may just not like this game. I've already noticed myself adjusting to the pace though, plus the minimap was a big positive step. I think they really have to keep that on for the 80+%, especially when you remember there will be modes like realism with no map, and I assume hardcore will be back as well. There are options for the no minimap gang, and there always have been for exactly this reason. Some people like core, some people like hardcore. You might like both, or hate one or the other, so naturally there will will be this minimap divide, but now they're forcing hardcore radar on all gameplay for the sake of trying it. And hey, you gotta try new things. I get it. I don't want the exact same game every year. There are tons of changes that I do like in this game. Disagreeing with one of them does not mean I want the same game every year. I gave it a try and found I was not a fan, so I hope they go with the majority on that, since the minority will still have game modes that appeal to the no minimap style of play. Alright, we're dropping the minimap topic. One other element loosely tied to the camping problem is people being pretty hard to see. I know other people felt that too, and they've acknowledged it. I know sometimes I'm just blind, and I'm not advocating for colorful clown outfits here, but people often blend in pretty dang well. Did you catch that guy in the corner? I'm sure many of you did. It's a little easier when you're watching it back as opposed to playing, but when there are so many ledges and windows and dark corners that people can be in, it'd be nice if targets popped a little bit more. Weapon balance. Really early to speak on that fully with not too many guns unlocked. Some attachments and perks may shake things up and allow for more counterplay, while other things may turn out to just be a huge problem that we haven't encountered yet, like stopping power rounds. I know it's a slow recharge time on that field upgrade, but I see no reason for that to be in the game. It'll make gunfights feel inconsistent, exactly like how I felt about there being no reason for body armor in Black Ops 4. And I foresee plenty of community pushback on that when it's playable. With what we did have access to, my thoughts have evolved over time. At first I thought the M4 was god tier and there was no reason to use anything else. It was a beast at every range, the AK kicked too much, the M13 didn't do enough damage and wasn't as accurate as the description made it sound, but I could be off because I've heard people praise the M13 too, maybe with the right attachments. In SMGs, I thought the MP5 was by far dominating. It was a laser at long range, it killed quickly. I thought the MP7 was amazing in gunfight, but never cared for it in the beta, but I've heard people praise that too, so I think I just didn't get enough experience with all the guns. The thing is, they even said it themselves, that they aren't necessarily striving for perfect weapon balance, and to some extent, I agree. You can't have every weapon feeling the same. There need to be a couple standouts in each category, and maybe even a stinker here or there. I'm down for a meme gun or two. Not every weapon should be equally usable, but every weapon should be usable. It should not feel like you're putting yourself at a major disadvantage for choosing one rifle over another. They should suit different playstyles, fill certain niches, and some will inevitably rise to the top, and that's fine. I'm not overly concerned about that because they can do some tuning based on usage as we go. But yes, the weapons should have character and stay true to their real-life counterparts. I get it, don't make all the weapons the same. I just found the M4 and later the MP5 to be crazy strong. Don't need to say much about spawns. I feel like that's a tentpole topic in every beta. It seems spawns are always a little scuffed. I assume that's because they use the massive amount of data gathered in the beta to help tune them. I hope that's the case. Hello there, sir. I'm surprised with how big these maps are and how many little alcoves there are and how big the areas are in the backs of the spawns that it couldn't find an out-of-sight spawn for me there. Spawns do seem very resilient to flipping. Who knows if it's trying to spawn me on teammates or near action or what, but I hope they can use the beta data to tune that up. I'm running out of big topics at this point, down to a few minor observations, like the cruise missile taking 3 weeks to fly into the map. It's funny how everyone seemed to independently have that exact same thought. Thankfully, the enemy cruise missile incoming callout only happens when you start controlling it, so it isn't like people have all that time to run for cover, but it could still stand to be cut down. There were some other bugs they've been fixing as they went. I won't focus on those, like the needing to back out and reform your party thing, Semtex is not blowing up on doors. Yeah, those doors that they were so excited about in the live streams, whenever I was sprinting near doors, they would sometimes ridiculously slam open and closed. Like, I know you're supposed to be able to sprint through them and smash them open, and that works fine, but sometimes you could just be jogging by at a reasonable pace, and somehow you clip the corner of an open door, and slam, it flies across to the opposite side. Like, what? I barely touched that. A couple times sprinting through open doors, it causes the same really big slam, because they must have not been 100% open. I found that kinda silly. The respawn cooldown, yeah, not a big fan. I saw some people talking about how they already hate the respawn animation. I wouldn't mind it if you just cut out the delay as much as possible. level, maybe speed it up. I get that it is a slower paced game and death should mean something, but there are already tons of gameplay elements that make it a slower paced game. You don't need to add an artificial delay on top of that when it doesn't make sense for the game mode. I get something like CTF. Traditionally, defenders have a respawn delay to allow attackers to push into their base, and plenty of other limited respawn modes, like Headquarters, which was featured, all the modes like S&D, the cyber attack thing, modes like Realism, those exist to give you the feeling of death mattering. Why have any delay in TDM and Domination? And it's only a couple seconds, it doesn't have any impact on the game really, and both teams have the same delay. It's just long enough to be a little bit annoying, so why have it there? Get me back in the action. It's Call of Duty, it's about action. So I have been enjoying the game overall. I did get more accustomed to the pace and the maps as I went, starting to have more fun. Gunrunner was big for me. I also actually think I started instantly doing better when I changed from the new hit marker sound to the classic. It's gotta be placebo, but maybe it's helping me register my hits better and the feedback. I don't know, it feels really good. Try out classic hit markers if you haven't next time you get the chance. But yeah, it's been fun, as I've said previously, not something I get addicted to, but when I have played it, all I can think of is how addicting it will be when there's permanent progression and things to earn. I'm still big time looking forward to Spec Ops and Campaign as well, but before any of that, I'm looking forward to next weekend when I can finally try out the game on PC, and the level cap will, I assume, continue up to 30. Of course, feel free to let me know your beta thoughts. I get that the pace of this game may not be for everyone, and I do understand the minimap is a divisive issue. I'm happy with the middle ground we have right now, but they said they would also be trying the enemy red dot gunfire by default on the 32v32 ground war next weekend. See ya for week 2 of the beta then. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.